Before I begin, I want to ask you something very personal. What would you do if someone you've known since they were practically a child, someone younger, someone you never imagined seeing in a certain light, suddenly appeared at your door one quiet evening, carrying a small gift, and with a few words, completely turned your world upside down? Would you laugh it off? Would you feel flattered but brush it aside? Or would you feel something stir deep inside you? Something you thought had long gone silent? This happened to me. And even now, when I think about that night, I realize I never saw it coming. Yet maybe, just maybe, the signs had always been there. But before I tell you what happened, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Are you curled up in your living room in New York City? Maybe you're tuning in from a small town in Texas, or perhaps somewhere across the world, where the seasons and skies look nothing like mine. I love knowing where these stories travel. It makes me feel like we're sharing this moment together. Now, let me take you back. A summer evening. It was one of those early summer evenings that carried a certain stillness, the kind where the sky refuses to let go of the sunset, holding on to streaks of orange and pink long after dinner. The breeze floated lazily through my open kitchen window, warm but gentle, carrying the faint scent of lilac from the garden. I had poured myself a glass of white wine. Nothing special, just something light and crisp to end the day. My shoes were off, my blouse a little wrinkled, my jeans loose and comfortable. The cookbook in front of me was open more out of habit than intention. I wasn't planning to cook. I was just letting my eyes drift across the pages while my mind wandered elsewhere. That's when I heard it. 3 firm knocks on the door. Not rushed, not hesitant, confident, but unexpected. I wasn't expecting anyone. I wiped my hands on a dish towel, not even bothering to check a mirror or fix my hair, and padded barefoot across the cool tile to the door. When I opened it, there he was. The visitor, Mark, 26 years old, my best friend Sharon's son. I hadn't seen him in a few weeks, not since Sharon's birthday party. Back then, he'd hugged me just a little longer than usual. I remember noticing it at the time, brushing it off with a laugh when he told me I looked elegant. But even as the night went on, something about the way he said it stayed with me. And now here he was, standing on my doorstep, tall, broad-shouldered, holding something hidden behind his back, like a boy with a secret. "Evening, Linda," he said, his voice deeper than I remembered. "Mark, hi! What are you doing here?" He grinned, the kind of grin that carried both nerves and confidence. "I brought you something." Before I could ask why, he pulled out a small, neatly wrapped box. "For me?" I asked. He nodded. "It's nothing big. Just saw it and thought of you." I hesitated for half a second, then stepped aside. "Well, you can't just stand there with mystery gifts and expect me not to be curious. Come in." As he passed me, his shoulder brushed mine lightly. Accidental, maybe, but the contact sent a strange, almost electric shiver down my spine. I shook it off quickly, pretending not to notice. Inside the kitchen, Mark set the box down on the counter, glancing around the kitchen like it was both familiar and new at the same time. "Still smells like cinnamon in here," he said with a half smile. "Baking again?" "Not today," I replied. "Just one of those scented candles." "Can I get you something to drink?" I added, needing to do something with my hands. "Water's fine," he said. As I poured his glass, I could feel his presence behind me. Quiet, steady, filling the space in a way I hadn't noticed before. No radio, no ticking clock. Just the sound of water hitting the glass, the faint creak of the floor beneath his shoes, and the awareness of him standing there. When I turned and handed him the glass, I gestured to the gift. "So, what is it?" "Open it," he said simply, his eyes fixed on mine. I pulled the ribbon loose, peeled back the paper, and lifted the lid. Inside was a delicate necklace, a slim chain, with a small amber stone at the center, glowing faintly in the kitchen light. "It reminded me of you," he said, his voice lower now. Natural, strong, warm. For a moment, I couldn't find words. "Mark, this is beautiful, but it's too much." "It's not," he said firmly, taking a sip of water. "I've wanted to give you something for a while, just didn't know how." And then, his eyes met mine. Not the way a boy looks at his mother's friend, the way a man looks at a woman. The confession. That's when he said it. "I've had feelings for you, Linda, for a long time." The words hung in the air like thunder after lightning. My breath caught in my throat. This can't be real," I stammered. "Mark, I've known you since you were a teenager. You're Sharon's son. You're—" "Don't say it," he interrupted, softly but firmly. "This isn't about her. This is about me, about how I feel about you." And then, as if to anchor his words, he reached out and gently tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear. His fingers brushed my skin, only for a second. But the warmth lingered like a spark. I should have stepped back. I should have laughed it off, but I didn't. Because the truth was, something inside me responded. Not just flattered, not just surprised, but seen, desired. A quiet invitation. The silence after his words stretched long enough to make me feel the weight of every second. My heart raced. My palms felt cool against the counter, and yet I wasn't moving. He must have noticed the conflict in my eyes because he took a half step back, giving me space. "I'm not expecting anything," he said gently. "I just needed to tell you. You deserve to know." I didn't answer right away. My mouth was dry, my thoughts tangled. But then, out of my own panic, or maybe curiosity, I blurted the first thing that came to mind. "Why don't you stay for tea?" His expression softened instantly. Relief flickered across his face, and his smile was warm again. "I'd love that." I turned toward the kettle, busying myself with something as simple as boiling water. Though my hands betrayed me, they weren't as steady as I wanted them to be. My mind spun in circles. Why did I ask him to stay? Why didn't I send him home? Why? Why did part of me feel something I hadn't let myself feel in years? He sat down at the small table by the window, bathed in the last streak of golden light, slipping into the kitchen. The amber stone on the necklace caught that same glow, and I found myself brushing my fingers over it again, as if checking it was real. "You like it?" he asked, almost shy now. "I do," I said softly. Then, before I could stop myself, I unclasped it and placed it around my neck. The cool chain slid against my skin, the stone resting gently just above my collarbone. It feels meaningful. His eyes followed the motion, but he didn't say anything. He didn't need to. The silence said enough. Words that change everything. When I sat across from him, mugs between us, I forced a small smile. "So, are you going to tell me what inspired this sudden visit? Or was it really just about the necklace and that confession?" Mark let out a quiet laugh, rubbing the back of his neck. "Honestly, I almost didn't come. I thought I'd lose my nerve. The gift was my excuse. But the real reason? It was you. I couldn't keep pretending I didn't feel something. I lifted my cup, needing the filling again. I lifted my cup, needing the comfort of the warmth in my hands. You do realize how complicated this is, right?" "Of course," he said without hesitation. "You're older. You're my mom's best friend. People would talk. You'd probably think I'm impulsive, confused." "A little," I admitted with a half smile. "But not for the reasons you think. It's not just the age, Mark. I've known you since you were 13. I used to bake cookies for you and your sister. And now, he replied softly, I want to make dinner for you. His words made my chest tighten. I wasn't used to hearing things like that. Things so direct, so disarmingly simple. I'm not some kid with a crush, he continued. I've dated. I've been in relationships. But you've always been different. You're thoughtful. You listen. You make people feel seen. And I can't ignore how rare that is. That word again, seen. And suddenly, I realized how long it had been since I felt truly noticed. Not just as someone's mother, someone's neighbor, someone aging quietly in the background, but as a woman. The question I wasn't ready for. Mark leaned forward slightly, his fingers resting near mine on the table. Not touching, but close enough that I could feel his warmth. Can I ask you something? He said quietly. I nodded. Have you ever felt anything for me, even just a little? I froze. That question landed deeper than I expected. I should have said no immediately, drawn a boundary. But the truth was, I couldn't. I've noticed you, I admitted, my voice softer than I intended. But I told myself it was just admiration. You've grown into a good man, Mark. A kind one. That's rare these days. Noticed me how? He asked gently, almost holding his breath. I laughed lightly, embarrassed. Let's just say you have a way of being present, like tonight. That calm confidence, it catches a woman. His lips curved into a small smile. Part warmth, part quiet pride. I'll take that as a yes. I didn't say yes, I countered, smiling despite myself. You didn't say no either. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was charged, thoughtful. He wasn't rushing, he wasn't pushing. And that made me trust him more than I expected. You're a little crazy, I finally said. Crazy about you, he replied with a wink. And for the first time in what felt like years, I laughed. A full, proper laughter. Unguarded laugh. The movie. It was me who surprised myself next. You want to stay for a movie? I asked. His eyebrows lifted slightly, but his smile grew. I'd love to. We moved into the living room. The lamps cast a soft glow. The couch was cozy with blankets draped over it. I picked an old classic. Something light, something familiar, because I wasn't sure my heart could handle anything heavy. We sat not too close, not too far. He leaned back, one arm draped casually along the back of the couch. Not touching me, but close enough that if I shifted just slightly, I'd feel it. Halfway through the film, I realized I wasn't watching it at all. I was watching him. The way he smiled at certain lines, the way he looked so comfortable in my home, as if he belonged here. Then, during a quiet moment, he turned to me. You're beautiful, Linda, he said. It didn't sound rehearsed. It didn't sound like flattery. It sounded like truth. I felt my cheeks warm. You've said that before, because it's true. His hand moved then, slowly, deliberately, to rest on mine where it sat on the blanket. He didn't grip, he didn't pull, he just let his thumb brush lightly across my skin. You don't have to do anything you're not ready for, he whispered. I just want to be near you, even if it's just this. And for the first time in years, I didn't pull away. A night of quiet. We sat like that through the rest of the film. Hands gently intertwined, nothing more. The credits rolled, the room dimmed, but neither of us moved. When I finally glanced at him, I saw it in his eyes. Softness, patience, care. He wasn't here to rush. He wasn't here to demand. He just wanted to be. You tired? I asked. Not even a little, he said softly. Being here with you, it gives me energy. I rolled my eyes, but I couldn't help smiling. You always this charming? Only with people who matter. That answer stayed in my chest long after. Eventually, I whispered, "Do you want to stay the night?" His brows lifted slightly, but his expression didn't shift into anything presumptuous. Just care. "Only if you want me to," he said. "I want you here," I admitted. "Not for anything more, just your presence." And so I brought him a blanket and a pillow, and he laid down on the couch. I went to my room, brushed my hair, and for the first time in a long while, when I looked at my reflection, I didn't see someone fading. I saw a woman alive again. When I peeked back into the living room, he was still awake, lying on his side, facing the hallway. "Good night, Linda," he whispered. "Good night, Mark," I replied. And I went to bed with a strange calm in my chest. The morning after. The next morning, sunlight streamed into my room. I woke earlier than usual. Not from restlessness, but from something else. A quiet energy, a feeling of curiosity. When I stepped into the living room, Mark was still asleep, his face peaceful, his body relaxed. Something about it tugged at me, a tenderness I hadn't expected to feel. I started coffee in the kitchen, and soon enough I heard him stir. "You're up early," he said, his voice rough from sleep. "So are you," I teased, handing him a mug. We stood side by side at the counter, sipping in silence, listening tea. It felt natural, easy. "I kept thinking about last night," I said softly. "So did I," he replied. "I wasn't expecting you to stay." "I wasn't expecting you to ask." I turned to him, meeting his patient eyes. "And how do you feel this morning?" "Like I didn't dream it," he said simply. "And like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." What comes next? Later, we sat outside on the porch, coffee cups warming our hands. The garden swayed in the breeze, the world unusually quiet. Finally, he asked the question I'd been avoiding. "So, where do we go from here?" I sighed, honest. "I don't know, but I don't want to pretend this didn't happen. I don't want to ignore how I feel." "I'm not asking for everything," he said. "Just don't shut the door on me. Don't shut the door on this." And for the first time in years, I realized I didn't want to. The garden. That afternoon, after breakfast dishes were cleared away, Mark offered to help me in the garden. I almost told him no. It felt like too normal a thing after the night we'd shared. But then again, maybe normal was what I needed. So we stepped outside. The sunlight was bright but gentle, the air thick with the scent of fresh cut grass and lilacs. My small backyard, with its tangled roses and overgrown hedges, looked suddenly alive again with him moving around in it. He grabbed the old pruning shears and started trimming the hedges, while I pulled weeds from the flower bed. We didn't talk much at first, just quiet work, the kind that feels grounding. But every so often, he'd glance over at me, and I'd catch him. His expression wasn't one of amusement or curiosity. It was softer, almost protective. At one point, I laughed at myself for struggling with a stubborn root, and he came over, kneeling beside me, tugging it free with ease. Our hands brushed, dirt smudged across our fingers, and instead of pulling back, he grinned. "You still make me nervous sometimes," he admitted. I blinked at him, surprised. "I make you nervous?" "You always have," he said, looking directly at me. "Back when I was younger, I could barely hold a conversation with you without tripping over my words. You were so confident, so composed, and now? You still make my chest tighten when you smile." His honesty disarmed me. I felt warmth creep into my cheeks, and for once, I didn't look away. "You still make me nervous too," I confessed quietly. We shared lemonade on the back steps after, sitting side by side with the sun warming our shoulders. He talked about work, about things he wanted to do, dreams he hadn't told many people. And I found myself listening, not just as a friend, but as a woman genuinely interested in the man beside her. There was no rush, no grand declarations, just a closeness that felt easy and terrifying at the same time. The goodbye. Eventually, the day had to end. Mark stood by the front door, his hands in his pockets, shoulders slightly tense, like he didn't want to leave, but knew he had to. "I'd like to see you again," he said finally. His voice was calm, but there was hope threaded through it. "You will," I replied, and I meant it. We hugged then, longer than polite, but not crossing into anything else. When he pulled back, he looked into my eyes, not pushing, not pleading, just steady. "I don't need you to decide anything today," he said softly. "Just don't shut the door on something good, even if it comes wrapped in something unexpected." And with that, he left. I stood at the door long after he'd walked to his car and disappeared down the street. The silence of the house racked around me again, but it didn't feel empty this time. It felt full. The necklace. I walked back into the living room and sat on the couch, the same spot where he had slept, the blanket still folded neatly where he'd left it. The necklace rested against my collarbone, and I reached up to touch it. The amber stone glowed faintly in the afternoon light, warm and steady. It struck me then. The necklace wasn't just a gift. It was a reminder that life doesn't stop offering surprises when you pass a certain age. That being seen, being wanted, being alive in someone else's eyes wasn't something reserved for youth. For years, I had convinced myself that my chapters of romance and wonder were behind me, that my days of being noticed, of being desired, had closed quietly, replaced with routines and silence. But Mark had knocked on my door and handed me something far more valuable than jewelry. He had handed me possibility, the reflection. That night, as I brushed my hair before bed, I caught my reflection in the mirror again. For so long, I had seen only age in those lines, only wariness in those eyes. But now, I saw something else, a spark. The reflection of a woman who still had the power to stimulate emotions, to matter, to start a new chapter. I thought of Mark's words, "You deserve to be seen." And for the first time in years, I believed it. The quiet gift. The next few days were ordinary on the surface. I went about my routines, ran errands, watered the plants. But everything felt different. The silence in the house wasn't heavy anymore. It was alive, humming with possibility. Every time I touched the necklace, I felt that quiet reminder. I was still here, still capable of being surprised, still capable of being wanted. And maybe that was the true gift he brought me that night. Not the stone, not the confession, but the chance to feel alive again. Closing words. So now I ask you, what would you do if someone unexpected knocked on your door? Not just with a gift in their hands, but with a truth that could shake your entire view of yourself. Would you shut the door, afraid of what people might say? Oh. And let yourself feel something you thought you lost forever. Because sometimes, the most unexpected knock is the one that wakes you back up to life.